Jeff, so great to have you on the podcast here today.
Jared, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Let's dive right in. So what I usually like people to do is, let's say you're walking down the street with your Digits sweatshirt on, and someone says, "What does Digits do?" What do you tell them?
We automate accounting. We have spent the past 6 years building sort of the first true AI native, machine learning native accounting platform with the belief that we can fully automate about 90% of the traditional accounting workflows.
This, when I first heard of you guys, it just made total sense because like accounting is a space, much like medical billing and stuff. There's codes, there's workflows that you can automate. At what point did you realize that like this just? I always say like it's not right, but the best companies you see out there, like the Ubers, you always hear someone go, "That was obvious." They never did it, but
Yep.
like that means you're onto something when it goes. That was when some random person on the street says that was obvious. So, what was your obvious moment when looking at accounting?
Yeah, Digits came out of my prior journey. So I had started a company called Crashlytics in 2011, totally different space. We're doing mobile developer tools. We got acquired by Twitter, and in 2015 they named me head of product at Twitter. And so I saw both the sort of small startup side and then the large like post IPO Twitter side of things. And what struck me was the difference in data between the product engineering side and the finance side. And so in product engineering, you have Google Analytics, A/B testing tools, performance monitoring dashboards. All these things are effectively real time and effectively free to set up. And then on the finance side, you're sitting there waiting 2 to 3 weeks to get a PDF of your balance sheet and P&L and so on, or a black and white Excel model. And I was just like, this is insane. And we were paying $1,000 a month for it. And so that was sort of the light bulb moment. And after I left Twitter, I was like, okay, there's something about this industry that needs to be disrupted and redone because it's not rocket science, right? Accounting's been done on pen and paper for hundreds, somewhat thousands of years. And so there's something wrong here. And as we sort of fell down that rabbit hole, we realized actually it was a software problem. The software is just not good enough. And if you had a better generation of software, you could automate so much of the tedium in the field.
Yeah, I think a lot of the older softwares out there, right, in the early days, they did solve a core. I mean, like you said, they were basically solving though from paper to digital.
Yep.
But then once that happened, they kind of like what typically happens with a lot of these big companies, right? They kind of just coasted and we know people need to do accounting. They'll keep using our software. And then you're
Yep.
like, we're going to come along and we're going to actually you do something that you did in the early days of we're going to take a look at why your software is not doing anything and we're going to improve it vastly. And one of the ways you're doing that is with AI, right?
Exactly.
Can you talk
Yep.
about how that's being done today?
Yeah, this has been quite a journey. So when we started Digits in 2018, AI, quote unquote, wasn't as much of a thing. Machine learning was definitely a thing. And we actually have a patent on early regular expression models that self-iterate, self-evolve as we see transactions come in. That tech is completely obsolete, so don't bother looking at our patent. But what's been really fun is to sort of be in this world as ML has gone through this hyperscale period. And so what's been interesting is we've spent 5 years now training our own in-house models. We run over a dozen in-house custom trained models. The key thing I would call out is accounting and finance broadly is not generative. You don't want an LLM hallucinating your books. And so most of what we do is actually sort of the old school predictive classification style ML models. And we have a really strong team, massive data sets, and we train all of our own stuff. We do see some wins from the new generation of LLMs. They give us about an extra 5% boost because you can do zero shot learning. But like it's largely a predictive problem space.
Yeah, you can't have your numbers looking different because of you can't have those hallucinations. You really can't have them in anything, right? But accounting is like high stakes.
Very high stakes, exactly.
You can get in trouble. So
Right.
that's interesting. Now, one of the things I always talk with people about, right, is immediately when I talk to bookkeeper, they love when they see like what you're doing, and I think a lot of it though is I would love to hear, how do you get them out of their own way of wanting to actually try something new, because there is, at first, there's probably for a lot of people uncomfortable not trying a software. It's different, right? You've created something better. So, what is your advice to them? What do you typically say to bookkeepers? Because a lot of these companies still have them.
Yeah, 100%. And this is something it's been really fascinating to learn because the software is so important, right? Like these accountants and bookkeepers have built their careers around whether it be QuickBooks or Xero or NetSuite or whatever their software package of choice. And so in general, over the past 30 years in the space, any software migration has been very slow. And I think we've actually been helped by the sort of hype around AI and the broad awareness of AI and sort of some of the fear mongering of like, are you going to be replaced? Because it's made it top of mind for accountants. And there is no world in which they're going to be replaced. Accounting is far too complex and has far too many judgment calls, but we can automate 90% of it and save the tedium. And so what's interesting, if you look at the industry dynamics, the accounting profession's under this catastrophic talent crisis. CPA enrollment's down 33% over the past 8 years. And so they're looking at like, where can we hire the next generation of accountants? And actually that answer is going to be these types of AI programs that can do a lot of the junior sort of less skilled work, the rote memorization, the categorization of transactions, et cetera. And that's actually going to help elevate the field. Because when you speak with these accountants, like they don't enjoy the tedium. They know it's tedious. What they really love is talking with their clients, advising them, understanding the data, helping grow the business. And so they're actually, what we're hearing is like, they are welcoming this because it allows them to spend more of their time doing what they really want to.
Yeah, and now as a result, what you would have is you could have a firm that could take on substantially more clients, right? Because now the tedious is taken away and they focus much of their time on actually analyzing the data and having those conversations. So now you could actually have people that want to build out more of these CPA practices, but using software like what you've built, because now it allows them to kind of be doing more things.
That's exactly right. And so, I mean, people going into accounting know it's not the field to go into if you want work-life balance. Like accountants work incredibly hard under really hard deadlines, usually at bad times, like the end of year during the holidays is like the rush period. And so what they're really seeing with tools like Digits is, okay, it can give me a lot of that time back. I can take on more clients. I can run my firm at higher margin, et cetera, et cetera.
Let's talk about just in general, not just with Digits. What other use cases of AI are really exciting you right now?
So I'm biased. I like the really productive use cases. There's a lot of hype online about image generation, text generation. They can write emails for you. They can respond to your customer service requests. Like that is all nice and valuable. What I get more and more excited about is like, can you actually automate real tasks? And so here's a silly example, but a real example. A lot of time wasted in accounting is just collecting statements from banks, right? It's like you need the bank statements in order to be able to do the books. It's a very tedious process to go and log into all of these banks and download the statements and so on. And so there's a huge effort right now on browser automation. You might have seen Anthropic just announced that their models can use a computer. The more stuff we can do to let these models actually just like do tasks for us will save so much time across industry. It's crazy.
I'm with you, though. I think we vastly overstate like where image generation and where, like, I think we've made incredible progress, right? But people make it seem like, oh, you don't need a graphic designer now. Oh, you don't need a video editor now. And then I'm trying the tools out and I'm like, it's getting it wrong. Like,
Right.
It's like you have a good use case. Like, and I'm not saying those are bad use cases. I think they will be very good very soon.
Yep.
But why are we trying? Actually, this is my question to you. Why are we continuously, though, trying to rush the technology to make it seem to everyone else that it is so much further along than it is? It is it's far along, but it is not to the point where you just type something and it's done. I'd love to hear your answer.
So it's really funny. I think this is a natural result of every tech hype wave. So if you look back to 2017 with crypto and all the hype around that, people were like, this is a panacea. Blockchain's going to fix every problem on Earth. You can do all these things. And as you dive into it, you realize, actually, no, it solves almost no problems. And it has very limited use cases and a lot of fraud and so on. Unfortunately, there's a lot of hypesters around the AI space as well. And you see these AI startups come out of Y Combinator and they've been building for 2 months and they're like, look, we've solved X. And it does a great demo, but the moment you use it for something real, it quickly falls apart. So to me, we are in this uncanny valley. I think we will build out of it. The models will keep improving. Over the next few years, more and more of it will become real. And so you can't really fault the innovators for trying, but particularly for all the founders out there, I would get really harsh with yourself and with your product on like, is it actually doing the job or is it sort of pretend doing the job and you're not really telling an honest story to your users?
Yeah, and I think also where you can automate things, obviously do it, but don't like everything doesn't have to be automated still, right? And
Exactly.
I think
Yep.
we also look at like now it's similar to blockchain technology, like you were saying earlier. Like we see AI as I can automate every single part of the, and then there's people that are starting to come out now and say you probably can, but like it's not going to be great. And then you're going to be fixing things. There's going to be
Yep.
hallucinations. So I do think we're moving at a super fast pace. And you're probably seeing, much of this innovation is happening in your area, in the Bay Area, right? So you
Yep.
probably see, or just even hear about a lot of these new opportunities. We had on the general partner of NFX, James Currier, actually episode 1, but a few episodes back, and he was really talking about where he really liked was also legal tech, right?
Yes.
Was and again, that's another one that goes, oh, seems obvious, right? So that probably means that we're onto something there. Are there any particular areas? I know you mentioned that you are bullish on though, like specific categories. Like, do you like legal tech? Like,
I love legal tech. I've made some angel investments there. It's the same thing. There's a lot of tedium. It is high stakes though, so the bar is high. You want a really serious team doing real technical work to do it correctly. I mean, I do think customer service will end up being a huge area for it. There's all the industries I think will have some impact, but to your point, I would encourage folks to just be really focused. Like have it automate the small pieces first before you claim it does the whole thing. And we've taken that same approach. Like when we really started going deep with this on Digits 5 years ago, we were just doing the core bookkeeping workflows, like the really most basic stuff, and got that right and then started building the confidence and it's able to do more and more things. But again, we're not telling accountants like, oh, we're replacing you, we do accounting. No, we automate the tedium to give you time back and help you serve more customers because we want to be really realistic about what it can do and what it can't.
yeah, and also a PSA to those accountants, like, check it out, use it.
Right, exactly.
Don't
Yeah, check out
dismiss.
Digits. Would love to chat with you.
Yeah, don't dismiss something because it's new. Like if that's
Right.
when that becomes the only reason you dismiss anything, you have some things you need to work on, right? And unfortunately, that's the case with any new technology. Now, a lot of people dismissed a lot of blockchain technology applications back in the day, but maybe those people are not looking so bad now.
Right,
But
exactly.
I do think this is different, though. I think this like we tried to make blockchain be something that everyone could use. I think we're closer to obviously AI being a technology that truly everyone can use, unlike blockchain, right? The fact that we have
100%.
ChatGPT, right, that you can ask questions like in some basic format, you're using it.
Yeah, it has direct utility. Blockchain, if you looked at the actual code, the actual implementation, there wasn't that much unique about it except for the privacy and trust aspect. And so people were using it for applications that didn't require privacy or trust. It doesn't really make sense. The AI is legitimately good at generating completions, whether it be images or audio or video or text or whatever. And so, in use cases where that is valuable, it is immediately useful. And so, the fact that it's so much more consumer accessible, it's so easy to adopt, it's easier to understand, even if you don't like fully understand how the model's working. The use cases are much vaster to me.
Jeff, I'd love to hear from you. I like to ask this fun question to guests. Basically, what's something that makes you laugh now, but you wanted to cry about when it first happened when building Digits?
Oh man, that is a really great question. Um, so we took the original approach. Our original team, I had no background in finance or accounting, and neither did our team. We had come from the mobile developer world, but we were serious about the space and hired introductory accounting professor from UCLA to give our whole team a class. I read multiple accounting textbooks. We intentionally in the early days didn't hire any accountants because we wanted to take a fresh perspective. We didn't want to be too biased by what had been built. And this was sort of based on Xero. For folks familiar with Xero, it's a big international accounting package. They had done the same thing. They had actually originally called Xero Accounting 2.0. They didn't build it with any accounting knowledge because they wanted to sort of understand it from the ground up. And so we took the same approach. That largely worked well. There were a couple moments when we discovered a truth about accounting that we hadn't fully appreciated. And so like one of these was just like how journal entries really work and that they can be arbitrary, any lines, any sides, anything you want. And we were like, oh, wow. And it totally shifted the architecture. And so we would have gone a little faster in the early days, I think, had we had some accountants on the team. But we also probably wouldn't have thought about so many things from just pure first principles, and I think made some other technical innovations that have really helped us. So there's been some pretty hilarious moments that we're now past. We have accountants on the team. We have CPAs in product leadership roles, et cetera. Like we know really what we're doing, but there were some funny moments in the early days.
I think you probably would have moved faster, but I think you also would have been slowed up at parts though too, because it would have went back to what you initially said. They might have, why would you do it that way? And maybe you spent a little bit more time thinking about it, right? But hey, it worked out.
It worked out. It worked out. Exactly. I don't have regrets. It's just funny moments.
Who along the way, in terms of like, has been either a good mentor or advisor in, not just the accounting, like maybe related to accounting, but specifically in when you said, hey, part of what we're going to be doing is we're going to be leveraging AI. Like who, as far as on that end, has been like a good mentor or investor for you?
Yeah, I'll call out our first investor, our sort of core investor is Peter Fenton at Benchmark. And I've known him for quite a while. He was on the board at Twitter when I was at Twitter. To poke fun of it, he gave a very funny reason. After doing the deal, I asked him like, oh, what made you commit so quickly? Why did you do this? And he said, yeah, your pitch reminded me of Uber. And of course, Benchmark famously did Uber. And I was like, really? How? We're not a taxi company. And he said, no, taxis were so terrible. The NPS was so bad that even if Uber was like slightly better, it would still be a huge business. And accounting is the exact same way. All the software is so bad. If you just build a mediocre sort of machine learning AI accounting solution, it's going to be a huge business. And I was like, okay, thank you, Peter, for the confidence.
Even if you are awful, you're probably going to do good. It's basically
right. Exactly. But no, that is more joking. To his credit, he has been a huge supporter and proponent of what we're doing. Super insightful at helping guide the company. So a huge fan of him. Very lucky to be working with him.
I would be curious, Jeff. Like, we don't have to go through the whole thing, but like, if you can think back, what was the initial pitch?
Oh man, it was very simple. It was basically what I started telling you with sort of the difference between the business side and the product engineering side and what I had seen inside Twitter and at Crashlytics. And my belief that a lot of the core flows could be automated if you had a better sort of technical architecture. And so we touched briefly on that, briefly on the direction, briefly on the build order. But I mean, when we pitched him, we didn't have a product, we didn't have a demo. It was just like, do you believe this is a huge problem? And we did have the advantage of having a team because I had built prior companies and sold prior companies. So I think we were more of a proven entity than a first-time founder coming in to do this. Because it is a long journey. It took us 5 years to build. It took all the major accounting platforms back in the day 5+ years to build their solutions. And so it was a really serious market to go after. But I think he believed in the vision and he believed in the team. And it's like, okay, let's go do this.
You remember how many potential slides you had? So like when you were first pitching it, this is something I always hear from founders, right? Like everyone struggles on, and obviously it differs, right? Like you had the check mark as this wasn't your first rodeo. You've already done this. You've had success.
Yeah.
And you've had success at the highest stage. You had the other check mark of big opportunity, interesting way of putting it, but like even if you built a mediocre product, you were probably going to do very well in this space.
Yeah.
That's not the case, right? But what did that look like? So like a lot of people say like how much time to spend on problem, how much time to spend on solution. You obviously were painting a picture of what the solution was going to be, right? Versus actually
Yep.
showcasing it. Just would be curious. We do have some listeners that are early stage founders or people that are going to be that next wave, and any
Yep.
advice you can give would be much appreciated.
Yeah, so this is, I'm not sure I mean this as advice. In the three startups I have founded and gotten funding for, I have never had a pitch deck. And so the first one way back in 2007, I raised on a demo. Crashlytics, I raised on a similar storyline and just like talking with the investor as I did Digits. It is extremely difficult, which is why I'm hesitant to give that as the advice. You need to know the market, industry, product you're building, competitive set, everything cold by memory, right? Because they are going to ask you tons of random questions and you have to know the answer. That's the only excuse you can have for not having a deck. What I have found, though, is it does make the conversation more natural because you're not stuck in your pre-built narrative. You can basically take it in any direction you want based on the investor's reaction, based on their question, based on what they seem curious about. And so it's allowed me to give a much more free-flowing pitch, and I think it's been very effective. But again, to emphasize, the bar is extremely high. Like if you screw that up, you're toast.
Yeah.
So you need to be like really knowledgeable about the whole market.
And the whole point of a lot of decks is also to kind of have a cold, like when there's a cold relationship for someone not knowing you, right? So like
Yep.
that strategy of no deck, like there needs to be some. You already had the check mark of they know you, they know what you're doing. Now let's ask him a million questions to ensure that like if we invest, like he's going to take it where it needs to
Yeah,
go.
that was the case here. That wasn't the
Yeah.
case for my second company. I met a lot of investors for the first time and told the story. But you definitely do need to convey this like confidence and expertise about the market because otherwise they're totally going to call BS.
It is funny though when like you kind of know an investor is maybe not so much interested when like you still hear ones that want to, do you have a full business plan or something like that.
Right.
Whenever you hear that, like maybe run as an
Yes,
entrepreneur, right? Because
100%.
it's like this
And
is not
and
them.
yeah, and I didn't have nothing. We did have a one pager, and like you want some follow up
Mhm.
thing that they can have and get more details on. I use the approach more to just not overly script the meeting because then you can navigate it more fluidly.
I love it. Oh, that's great. That's great advice. Jeff, really love chatting with you. You were awesome. Love what you're building with Digits, and look forward to staying in touch. And then we'll see you at the Human X conference too, right?
Yes, I will be there. Super exciting. We're looking forward to it. We're actually going to have some news to share at the event, so it'll be big.
Sweet. We'll be doing some interviews and stuff there, so look forward to also meeting in person. And I can't wait. March will be here before we know it.
Well, Jared, so great to do this. Thank you so much.